Anglican denominations and sects.
The two major historical schisms in Christianity have severely damaged its image. In particular, the endless internal strife within the religion has only made matters worse. These phenomena cause some outside the faith to view it with disdain, lead some within the faith to become disillusioned and leave. In recent years, the rapid increase in the proportion of no religion in developed countries and regions serves as a significant argument for this. Academia often divides Christianity into three major denominations: Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, and Protestantism. However, strictly speaking, only Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy are denominations. Protestantism is not a denomination because Catholicism has only one church, practicing a centralized system with the Pope as its leader. Eastern Orthodoxy comprises 16 autocephalous churches, but belongs to the same denomination, practicing a regionally independent organization with the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople as its spiritual leader. Protestantism has countless sects, subsects, and further divisions, but lacks a common organization and leader. Crucially, besides the multitude of sects, there are also sects and house churches. Furthermore, some sects position themselves as being between Catholicism and Protestantism, such as Anglicanism. Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy both possess well-organized and systematic structures, hence they are called denominations. In contrast, Protestantism lacks a systematic structure. Therefore, accurately speaking, Protestantism should be called a movement rather than a denomination. As for Anglicanism, it is a special case because it positions itself as being between Catholicism and Protestantism. Prior to its independence, it opposed Martin Luther. England was the first to openly confiscate Catholic Church property, and there has been no substantial restitution to this day.
The Church of England.
After Martin Luther initiated the Reformation by posting his 95 Theses in 1517, King Henry VIII of England firmly sided with Roman Catholicism. In response to Luther's challenges to Catholic doctrine, Henry VIII even personally wrote a book titled Defense of the Seven Sacraments, aimed at defending the seven sacraments of the Catholic Church. Published in 1521, the book was highly praised by Pope Leo X, who bestowed upon Henry VIII the title Defender of the Faith. However, the irony of history lies in the fact that a mere decade or so later, Henry VIII's personal marital issues led to his break with Roman Catholicism, ultimately facilitating the English Reformation and the establishment of the Church of England. Thus, Henry VIII's stance underwent a dramatic transformation, from a staunch defender of Catholicism to the first to break away from Rome. The Church of England, also known as Anglicanism, originated from a profound religious Reformation movement in English history where church and state were united. It is closely related to the political needs of the English monarchy and the currents of the Reformation in Europe at the time. King Henry VIII of England desired a male heir to succeed him to the throne. Therefore, he sought to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, in order to marry Anne Boleyn. However, Pope Clement VII, under significant pressure from Catherine's nephew, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, refused Henry VIII's request for an annulment. Henry VIII was infuriated by this. He believed that the King of England should hold supreme authority within his own territory, including religious matters. With the support of ministers like Thomas Cromwell, Henry VIII began to challenge the Pope's authority in England. To achieve his aims, Henry VIII manipulated Parliament to pass a series of significant parliamentary acts, including the Act of Supremacy. This act declared the King of England to be the supreme head of the Church of England, thereby nationalizing religion. This marked the formal separation of the English Church from the jurisdiction of Roman Catholicism, and the Church of England was thus born. Such a significant move was actually quite unnecessary. After all, Henry VIII had numerous wives and concubines, which, in any case, violated the Bible and was outright adultery. The English Parliament also passed acts limiting the Pope's income and power in England, as well as acts dissolving monasteries within England and confiscating church property, further consolidating the Crown's control over religious affairs. What is the difference between this unprovoked confiscation and open robbery? Although the primary initial purpose of Henry VIII's religious reforms was to resolve his personal marital issues, the Church of England he established saw little change in doctrine and liturgy. The episcopal system remained, as did the Bible, including the Apocrypha. During Henry VIII's reign, the Church of England retained many Catholic traditions in its doctrine, with the fundamental change occurring in the leadership of the Church. After the Reformation, Henry VIII married a total of 6 wives and had over a dozen mistresses. He fathered many children and illegitimate offspring. However, only 3 survived to have a claim to the throne. 1. Mary I, daughter of Catherine of Aragon, later reigned for 5 years. 2. Elizabeth I, daughter of Anne Boleyn, later reigned for 44 years. 3. Edward VI, son of Jane Seymour, later reigned for 6 years. Henry VIII's successor was his 9-year-old son, Edward VI. Due to his poor health, he reigned for only 6 years and died at the age of 15, still a minor. However, the regents who governed during his reign actively promoted further reform of the Church of England, making it more Protestant. According to the line of succession in Henry VIII's will, Mary I succeeded Edward VI. She was a devout Catholic and dedicated her 5-year reign to forcibly restoring Catholicism. In doing so, she had many people executed, earning her the nickname Bloody Mary. She died of illness at the age of 42 without leaving any children. According to the order of succession, Elizabeth I ascended to the throne. During her reign, Elizabeth I further promoted the religious Reformation, making the Church of England more Protestant in its doctrine. She established important statements of faith such as the 39 Articles and developed a unique style in liturgy, known as the Via Media, a blending of Catholic and Protestant elements. Elizabeth I sought religious stability and unity between Catholics and Protestants. She passed a series of acts, such as the New Act of Supremacy and the Act of Uniformity, which established the position of the Church of England and adopted a relatively moderate and compromise-oriented stance in doctrine and liturgy. This laid the foundation for the long-term development of the Church of England. The reign of Elizabeth I was a golden age in English history. However, her Protestant leanings, at least in part, also led to the war with the Spanish Armada. Thus, perhaps fate is such that man proposes, God disposes. Henry VIII risked divine retribution to bring religion under state control. He not only failed to realize his dream of a male heir securing the throne for millennia but also set a precedent for nationalizing religion. Subsequently, many nobles on the European continent followed suit. So, if the division of Christianity is considered unbiblical, then Henry VIII is undoubtedly a sinner for all time. In secular matters, 2 of Henry VIII's 6 queens were beheaded. Therefore, he is also known to later generations as the worst English king in the world. It is likely that all nobles who brought religion under state control are eternal sinners for dividing Christianity. They shift all the blame onto the scholars of the Reformation movement, which is a case of scapegoating. After all, scholars' rebellions rarely succeed. Furthermore, the unjustly confiscated church property should be fully restituted. This tragedy of church division was an interactive and gradual development process. 1. The Renaissance created fertile ground for public opinion to defy the papacy. 2. Martin Luther sowed the seeds of rebellion in this fertile ground of public opinion. 3. Henry VIII seized this historical opportunity to bring the church and its property entirely under state control. 4. Seeing Henry VIII take the lead, some secular nobles on the European continent swarmed in, using the guise of defending the Reformation to bring the churches and their property within their territories entirely under state control. 5. Protestantism was thus the result of being utilized and forcibly implemented by church-state unity secular regimes, and it has no direct relationship with differences in doctrine or sacraments.
The Church of England and the Anglican Communion.
The Church of England has not officially changed its name to Anglican Church. Rather, the Anglican Communion is the name for the worldwide fellowship of independent churches, also known as provinces, that are in communion with the Church of England. The Church of England is the national Church of England and the mother church of the Anglican Communion. The Archbishop of Canterbury is its spiritual leader. With the expansion of the British Empire, the Church of England spread its teachings to various parts of the world, establishing churches in different regions. These churches gradually developed their own autonomous governance and administrative structures. To maintain connections with each other and a shared identity of faith, these autonomous churches formed the Anglican Communion with the Church of England. Therefore, in the Chinese context, Anglican Church can refer to the Church of England itself, or it can refer to the global Anglican Communion, including the Church of England. The key lies in the specific context. In a sense, even today, the United Kingdom can still be considered a system with characteristics of church-state unity, although the form and extent of this unity have significantly changed historically and are now largely symbolic.
Loss of Anglican faithful.
The Church of England, as the mother church of the Anglican Communion, has also faced a significant loss of faithful in recent years. One of the reasons for this is the negative perception of the Church. Some individuals, upon reaching maturity, choose to distance themselves due to their inability to reconcile with the Church's historical issues. This leads them to either abandon their faith or switch denominations, with many choosing to convert to Catholicism. To accommodate them, the Catholic Church has even established personal ordinariates. This holds considerable appeal for many disillusioned Anglicans. Personal ordinariates are canonical structures established by the Catholic Church to welcome former Anglican lay faithful and clergy who desire to maintain certain elements of their specific liturgical and spiritual heritage. It allows these individuals to be in full communion with the Roman Catholic Church while preserving their distinct Anglican patrimony. To date, the personal ordinariates comprise approximately 15,000 people. Some bishops have led their entire diocesan congregations to convert to Catholicism en masse. Of course, the aging demographic within the Church of England's faithful also contributes to the issue, as it has not effectively retained younger generations. Young people may find the Church's traditions, rituals, and teachings disconnected from their lives and values, leading to disillusionment. The Anglican Church also faces internal disagreements on significant theological and ethical issues, such as the acceptance and rejection of homosexuality marriage, the ordination of openly gay individuals as bishops, and the ordination of women to the priesthood. These controversies have caused divisions within the Church. Some conservative-leaning faithful believe that the clergy are successors of Jesus and the saints, and that a sudden change in gender is unacceptable, leading them to leave. Notable examples of conversions to Catholicism en masse include Bishop Jeffrey N. Steenson. He was the bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of the Rio Grande in the United States. Dissatisfied with the Episcopal Church's stance on liberalizing issues, he resigned his bishopric in 2007 and led a significant portion of his diocese into the Catholic Church in 2009. He was later ordained a Catholic priest within the Personal Ordinariate and in 2012 was appointed the first ordinary of the Personal Ordinariate of the Chair of St. Peter. Bishops John Broadhurst, Andrew Burnham, and Keith Newton. These three were bishops in the Church of England, opposing the Church of England's liberalizing tendencies on issues such as the ordination of women and homosexuality relationships. They resigned their bishoprics in 2011 and led a substantial number of Anglican faithful into the Catholic Church. They were subsequently ordained Catholic priests within the Personal Ordinariate of Our Lady of Walsingham, established for England, and Bishop Keith Newton was later appointed its first ordinary.
The past and present of the Anglican Church.
The Anglican Church is categorized as one of the major denominations within Protestant Christianity. Its history, theology, and liturgy possess unique characteristics, often described as a Protestant denomination that adheres to Catholic traditions. However, the early Church of England, while administratively independent, still retained many Catholic elements in its doctrine and liturgy. It was through later developments, particularly during the reign of Elizabeth I, that the Anglican Church gradually established its distinct beliefs and practices, blending Catholic traditions with the reformist ideas of the Protestant Reformation. The Anglican Church is often seen as taking a middle way via media between Catholicism and Protestantism. It retains many historical liturgical practices and church structures, such as the episcopacy and the sacraments, while also embracing some core tenets of the Reformation, such as the emphasis on scriptural authority and justification by faith. The Anglican Church believes that the authority for its faith comes from three interconnected sources. The Scriptures are the ultimate authority in matters of faith. The teachings, creeds, and practices of the early Church are important references. Reason, as God's gift to humanity, plays a significant role in understanding faith. The Anglican Church recognizes the two major sacraments instituted by Christ himself, baptism and Holy Communion, the Eucharist. It also acknowledges 5 other important rites in church tradition as sacramental rites, including confirmation, tenants' confession, holy orders, matrimony, and anointing of the sick. The Anglican Church has maintained the historic episcopate, believing that the lineage of bishops can be traced back to the apostles. This is seen as an important sign of church unity and authority. The Anglican Church practices a threefold order of ministry: bishops, priests, presbyters, and deacons. The Book of Common Prayer is central to Anglican liturgical worship, containing the order of service, prayers, and scriptural readings. Different regions within the Anglican Communion may have variations of the Book of Common Prayer, but all reflect the distinctive liturgical style of Anglicanism. The hierarchical structure of each autonomous church province typically consists of parishes, the most basic unit of the church, overseen by one or more priests, rectors, or vicars; dioceses, a geographical area under the jurisdiction of a bishop; provinces. In some regions, several dioceses are grouped together to form a province, led by an archbishop or metropolitan.
The Anglican Church in China.
The Anglican Church was introduced to China in the 19th century, initially known as the Anglican, and was one of the major sects of Protestant Christianity. In 1912, the Chinese Anglican was established, becoming an autonomous province of the Anglican Communion. In modern Chinese history, the Anglican Church made significant contributions in areas such as education, healthcare, and social services. Following the signing of the Treaty of Nanjing in 1842, China was forced to open treaty ports, and various Western Christian missionary societies sent missionaries to China. The American Episcopal missionary William Jones Boone was among the earliest Anglican missionaries to enter China. In 1844, he was appointed bishop of the American Episcopal Church's China Mission and established a base in Shanghai. The Church of England followed closely behind, conducting missionary work in Ningbo, Fuzhou, and other places. As missionary work expanded, the Anglican Church gradually established multiple dioceses in China, including Hong Kong, Zhejiang, North China, Fujian, Hankou, Henan, West Shandong, and Yunnan Guizhou. In the early 20th century, seeking unity, Anglican missionary societies from various backgrounds, including those from Britain, the United States, and Canada, began to negotiate union. In 1912, the Chinese Anglican was formally established, becoming the first united organization of Protestant sects in China. In 1930, the Chinese Anglican was recognized as an independent province at the 7th Lambeth Conference. The Anglican Church in China not only spread religion but also contributed to education, healthcare, and social welfare. For example, by founding schools, including St. John's University and St. Mary's Hall in Shanghai, as well as hospitals. After the establishment of the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Christian community initiated the Three Self-Patriotic movement, emphasizing self-governance, self-support, and self-propagation, with the aim of eliminating the influence of foreign churches. Against the backdrop of political and social changes, the Chinese Anglican, as a unified province, gradually ceased to operate. Anglican churches in China continued to exist and develop under the Three Self principles. Affiliated with the Three Self-Patriotic movement of the Protestant churches in China and the China Christian Council, the Hong Kong Anglican Church, on the other hand, maintained its traditional beliefs and liturgy and remained connected with the Anglican Communion. Although historically related to the Chinese Anglican, the Hong Kong Anglican Church developed independently after the political changes. In terms of Bible versions, Chinese Anglican churches align with mainstream Protestantism, using the 1919 edition of the Chinese Union version of the Bible. Historically, the Anglican Church has adopted a relatively moderate and respectful attitude towards the Apocrypha.
The Christian Ecumenical Movement.
Formed during the Reformation, the Anglican Church itself retained many Catholic traditions and rituals while also embracing some core Protestant doctrines. This middle way stance equips it with the potential for dialogue and understanding between Catholicism and Protestantism, enabling it to serve as a bridge between the two. The Anglican Communion is a global fellowship of churches encompassing diverse cultures and theological viewpoints. This universality allows it to connect with a broader range of Christian communities, fostering exchange between different denominations. The Anglican Church was one of the founding members of the World Council of Churches and has long played a significant role within it. promoting cooperation between different denominations and confessions in areas such as faith, ministry, and social care. Since the Second Vatican Council, the Anglican Church and the Catholic Church have engaged in multiple rounds of significant theological dialogue. For example, the Anglican Roman Catholic International Commission (ARCIC) has made notable progress on contentious issues such as the Eucharist, holy orders, and Mary, increasing mutual understanding and narrowing theological differences. The Anglican Church also actively engages in bilateral or multilateral dialogues with other Protestant denominations, such as Lutherans, Methodists, and Reformed churches, seeking consensus and cooperation in matters of doctrine and church governance. The Chicago-Lambeth Quadrilateral, proposed by the Anglican Church at the Lambeth Conferences of 1886 and 1888, serves as a basis for unity and includes the Holy Scriptures as the supreme rule of faith. The two great creeds of the early Church, the Nicene Creed and the Apostles' Creed, as sufficient statements of Christian belief. The two sacraments ordained by Christ himself, baptism and the Holy Communion. The historic episcopate, locally adapted in the methods of its administration to the varying needs of the nations and peoples called of God into the unity of his Church. This quadrilateral has become an important reference framework for the ecumenical movement, providing a common foundation for dialogue between different denominations. In many places, Anglican churches actively participate in interdenominational joint worship services, prayer meetings, and social service projects, promoting understanding and cooperation among believers. In some countries and regions, the Anglican Church has jointly established church union organizations with other Christian denominations, fostering deeper levels of cooperation and unity. However, internal tensions between liberal and conservative factions within the Anglican Church persist on some theological and socio-ethical issues. This phenomenon sometimes affects its stance in the ecumenical movement. On certain core doctrines and models of church governance, the Anglican Church still faces significant gaps with some denominations. As a global communion composed of multiple autonomous provinces, the Anglican Communion sometimes struggles to form a unified opinion on ecumenical matters.
Restitution of Catholic Church property.
During the English Reformation in the 16th century, particularly through the dissolution of the Monasteries Acts of 1536 and 1539, King Henry VIII of England massively confiscated the property of Catholic monasteries and other religious institutions, including land, buildings, gold, silver, jewels, and various other assets. The confiscated property primarily flowed into the royal treasury, helping Henry VIII consolidate royal power and finance some of his military campaigns. Much of the monastic land and property was granted to nobles and the emerging gentry who supported the king in exchange for their loyalty. Some land was also sold to increase royal revenue. Some monastic buildings were destroyed or repurposed. A small number were converted into new Church of England churches or secular buildings. During the reign of Henry VIII and his successors, the confiscated property was not returned to the Catholic Church. In later historical periods, particularly during times of relatively more lenient political climates, there were some small-scale returns or compensations of property. But these were insignificant compared to the large-scale confiscations under Henry VIII and were not widespread. In modern British society, views on the historical Reformation are more diverse. However, there has been no large-scale movement to return church property. Some symbolic gestures or acknowledgments of historical wrongs might exist, but actual property restitution has been very limited. The Catholic Church has consistently maintained a position of demanding compensation or the return of church property confiscated during the Reformation and has made various efforts towards this end. Not returning the confiscated Catholic Church property seems unreasonable. Future generations will forever bear the infamous reputation that the Reformation was a movement of thugs engaged in vandalism and robbery. After all, England was the first to confiscate Catholic Church property. If it doesn't show some gentlemanly gesture, it will indeed be difficult to convince the public. Then, what should those who subsequently confiscated Catholic Church property do? For the present, there seem to be only two paths to choose from: either publicly apologizes and makes restitution, or completely convert to Catholicism.